US President-elect Joe Biden says he will ask Americans to wear masks for his first 100 days in office. He also confirmed he has asked the top infectious disease expert Anthony Fauci to remain as chief medical advisor. Talks are set to continue in London about a possible post-Brexit trade deal. With just 4 weeks before the end of the transition period, both the EU and the UK are seeking compromises in key areas. As a result of the coronavirus pandemic, the film studio Warner Bros. Has announced that its entire output for next year will play on a streaming service at the same time that the films are released in cinemas. Organisers of the delayed Summer Olympics, due to take place in Tokyo next year, said the Games will require at least $2.4 billion in extra funding. The committee said the Games, due to be held in July next year, will need an additional $1.5 billion.
Heat TV says that life in Mekelle, the Tigray capital, was returning to normal after troops reportedly recaptured the city. In Britain, fire officials report several deaths from an explosion at a water treatment center near Bristol. In Thailand, at least 5 people are killed during fast-moving floods in several areas in the south. And in Hong Kong, a court refuses temporary release for detained democracy activist and media leader Jimmy Lai. He was detained Wednesday on charges of dishonest business dealings.
Hong Kong authorities are facing international criticism after 3 leading activists were sentenced to prison. Joshua Wong, Agnes Chow, and Ivan Lam will spend up to 13 months behind bars for their role in one of last year's major protests. The rally took place before China passed a new national security law, which many say has effectively silenced the movement. Authorities in Afghanistan are still looking into last year's killing of a Japanese doctor and aid worker. Nakamura Tetsu dedicated decades to improving the lives of Afghans by providing humanitarian support. He died after being ambushed by gunmen in the eastern province of Nangarhar. He was 73. The local governor had this to say for the anniversary of Nakamura's death.
Afghan is going to remember him forever, and the killers will be brought to the justice.
Nakamura became the first foreign national to be awarded honorary Afghan citizenship. He was known to locals as Uncle Nakamura. South Korean media say a former coach for the country's national Paralympic judo team is accused of having able-bodied athletes participate in major events for the visually impaired. The outlets say prosecutors in Seoul indicted the former head coach along with 13 athletes for fraudulently accepting government prize money. The athletes won many medals in the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Paralympics and some Asian Games. The former coach allegedly instructed the athletes to obtain medical certificates by lying about their eyesight. We're broadcasting from NHK in Tokyo. You're listening to Asian View on NHK World Japan. The coronavirus pandemic has made life hard for students who are studying abroad. Many have had to return home or shift to online courses. International students in Japan are no exception. But living in Japan also presents some special problems for them. I spoke about this with Tsunae Naoko. She's a journalist and a researcher who studies this issue. Ms. Tsunae, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
There are many students from Asian countries in Japan. What kinds of problems are they experiencing?
The biggest one is economic difficulties. In some Asian countries, the young people hope to go abroad to earn a better income because of poverty, economic disparities, and the lack of employment opportunity. In some countries, especially Vietnam, there are brokerage companies that send them to Japan, and many students must use such services because of things like the language barriers, and they have to pay fees to brokerage Japanese language schools and dormitories. And these costs can add up to more than 10,000 US dollars, and many students have to borrow money as a result.
So they're already in debt before they arrive in Japan.
Yeah, Japan allows students from other countries to work up to 28 hours per week, and they work part-time to pay off debts, to pay school fees and living expenses, and to send money to their families. But many have lost their jobs because of the coronavirus pandemic, and they cannot return home because flights have been cancelled, and some have had their job offers cancelled because their employer's business isn't doing well.
We've been hearing about crimes like theft committed by foreign technical interns and students in Japan. Is that because they're short of money due to the pandemic?
Well, people from other countries accounted for about 3% of the total number of criminal offenses reported in Japan last year. So we cannot really say that crimes by migrants are increasing. Media report of crimes by people from other countries risk damaging the reputation of migrants who live without causing any problems. In 2008, the Japanese government set a goal of accepting 300,000 students until 2020. International students have helped prop up educational institutions across the country that have seen a decline due to the falling birth rate. And also they have become an essential part of the workforce. So we needed to create a public support system for international students.